All right, welcome to another episode of West Ham Weekly, where we're joined by journalist and author Adam Powley. Pleasure to have you here.
Good afternoon.
Head of West Ham versus Tottenham. Adam, it's been a great season for both clubs. Has West Ham's performances surprised you?
Yes and no, but then I think it's been a surprising season all round in terms of the Premier League. From the outside looking in, my view on West Ham is that they've stabilised under Allardyce. And then that was never going to be a really good long-term fit between him and the club. So it's kind of like natural progression then to bring in like someone like Slaven Bilic. I think the recruitment's been really good. I think signed some really good players. Dimitri Payet, I think, is a fantastic player, and I think that's reflective of how the spending power of Premier League clubs has gone on. The fact that West Ham can attract a player like him. So it's not been surprising in terms of seeing the progression that West Ham have made, but I think it maybe has come a bit of surprise about how well you have been doing and how kind of like consistent you've been in the league as well.
So coming on to the game on Wednesday night, what's your score prediction?
I never make predictions and I never will.
What do you reckon's gonna? What are your thoughts ahead of the game then?
I think it's a really, really tight, unpredictable game. You've got kind of like two conflicting things that are going on here. You've got West Ham, who've got a fantastic home record, and Spurs have got a brilliant away record.
Yeah.
They're both on form, so it's something we'll have to give, or if it doesn't give, it's probably going to be a draw. That's what I'm probably going to plump for. Like it'll be a low-scoring draw. Yeah.
I'd say one thing that I find really interesting about both teams, especially, is recruitment from the Championship and the lower leagues as well. You take Mikel Antonio, for example, and also Dele Alli, who both respectively have been so important for West Ham and Tottenham this season. Mikel Antonio, most recently, really important for us, and Dele Alli, big miss for Tottenham tomorrow night.
Yeah.
What have you thought of him this season?
It's been amazing, been a revelation. Everyone kind of knew, it was no secret that he was the player from the Championship, from the Football League, the one that was going to make it. It's not as if they've discovered this like secret gem. Loads and loads of clubs were after him, so his talent had been well recognised. Despite that, it still has been a real surprise about how he's kicked on, how quickly he's settled, and I think it's a Spurs writer called Alan Fisher, who writes a very good blog called the Spurs blog. He came up with a great line, a really good observation, that within 5 games, Dele Alli had gone from being a promising youngster to kind of like first name on the team sheet. And that's kind of like reflective of his progress. He's just settled in superbly well. A lot of it is down to the manager as well. Like the secret behind Tottenham's success, if you want to ask what that is, it's down to the coach, it's down to the manager, above all else.
Well, Tottenham were almost criticised when Pochettino came in. It was seen that it was a sort of a high-pressing, players maybe getting fatigued, especially having to play Thursday nights, but Pochettino now really seems to be one of the managers of the season. How impressed are you with him, and are you going to be able to hold on to him?
Good big question, because look, I know there were specific circumstances about why he left Southampton because of they lost Nicola Cortese, so he wasn't happy with that, but he made a progression in his career, like to step up to come up to Spurs. Spurs are part of the food chain, and there are much bigger and better and wealthier clubs than Tottenham. So if he carries on doing what he is doing, then obviously other clubs are going to be casting envious eyes. The key one is Real Madrid. For all his protestations about he doesn't want to go to Real Madrid, if they come knocking and they offer him a shed load of money and a huge budget, then he'll take it. But for now, he seems happy, he seems settled. I think he does give off the air and kind of like the noises that are coming out from the club is that he kind of wants to see the project through. But things can change like very quickly, so we'll see.
Especially the Spurs managers always changing, really.
Yeah, well, that's not down to them. That's down to the owners.
Yeah,
they've had 10 managers in 15 years.
Yeah.
I think they did very well to get Pochettino, and I think done very well in terms of their recruitment and what they've done to get him. But Daniel Levy is notorious for pulling the plug. So we'll see. But I think this might be one of those where they kind of lose the manager, not because it's down to
the club. If you look at Redknapp, he was doing very successfully with you, and then sticky patch. I think he finished fourth, and
yeah, there were kind of other reasons
got
behind
kicked out
that.
behind that.
Yeah, I mean,
So-
Harry Redknapp should never have come to Spurs. Really,
No.
it's they had to kind of like rip up their plan, this director of football plan, and get him in to rescue the situation. And he was always going to be a short-term appointment. He was never going to be a long-term because of his age and because of his style of management. So I think what happened with that at the end is that the relationships between them broke down. The ideal situation would have been for Harry Redknapp to get the England job. He moves on, Spurs get compensation, and everybody's happy. But because the England job fell through, then it came to a head like, well, what do they do? So he actually, in terms of kind of like Ealing, Redknapp had a pretty good run at the job, but he was never going to be long term in any case.
I think most significantly, from the outside looking in at Tottenham's season, there was always a worry how they would manage post Bale, because he was so influential and such a colossal player for Tottenham. But definitely the impression I get, there's just a buzz. There's just a real feel-good buzz, like the sky's the limit. I mean, you've got a young, vibrant manager in Pochettino, absolute gem in Ali, like we were saying, and just everybody appears to be performing. It's a cliche, but the dressing room must be just on cloud nine.
Yeah, I mean that is the kind of all the signs, publicly, and kind of like what you hear as well. That is what's emanating from the club, that there's a real kind of like unity of purpose. The situation had been beforehand that Spurs had great players, but not necessarily a great team. And I think there was a comment from Danny Rose, like after the game at the weekend. He made a very telling comment along those lines, saying that we haven't got any superstars. He said, but I've never seen such unity of purpose and energy and that sense of team spirit than he has now. A lot of that is down to Pochettino, a lot of that down to the players themselves, a lot of it is down to the work that's gone on down the years behind the scenes with the youth team. There's a lot of players that have come through, and John McDermott, who heads up the academy, he's kind of almost like the unsung hero in this. And as well, you have to say, like the owners, like they've taken a while to do it, but they've got the structure in place that they've always planned to do. They've recruited well. They seem to be letting the managers and the people who are in their roles get on with the job, and the club's reaping the benefits.
And it's a real young team, so it instills faith in youth systems. Because people have criticised grassroots football and academy systems in the past, but it does appear to be that Tottenham are kind of heading the revival, if you know what I mean, in that they are bringing talent through ranks, which is great to see, obviously, from an international perspective.
Yeah, I think this is one of the few times like when Spurs have actually been a bit ahead of the game in the way the Premier League is developing. You hear a lot of clubs say that they want to grow from within, they want to grow their own talent. They're all obviously following like Barcelona model. That's what they're aiming to do. Even Manchester United with the spending power they've got have talked about redeveloping their youth system and bringing players through who, if they don't stay, they will at least have resale value. So for kind of like the first time in Premier League history, Spurs have been a bit ahead of the curve on that rather than trying to play catch up with the other clubs. And I think, again, you can see that's why they're reaping the benefits of it. It's very early days though, that's the point. This is a season where they're performing way above expectations. I think if you asked most Spurs fans at the start of the season, they would have said Champions League players would bite your hand off for it. No one expected the challenge for the title.
Well, that's the $1 million question, Adam. Can Tottenham win the league?
Right. Well, from being a Spurs fan of long and bitter experience, I'm going to be a pessimist and say it's unlikely. I still think it's unlikely. There's a lot being said about the quality of Tottenham's squad. I've been saying all along that I don't think it's that good. It's not that deep. No. They're picking up a few injuries. That's having a little bit of an impact. Form is still good. Form is still very, very good. But I just think that when it comes to the crunch, they're going to run out of steam a little bit towards the end.
So come the end of the season, where do you think you'll finish?
Well, the expectation now is minimum for like a Champions League place. If they don't get that, then they would have thrown it away to a certain extent. Yeah. Things have fallen into place. No one predicted Manchester United, more pertinently Chelsea, to have such a struggle this season. So it's not a once in a lifetime opportunity, but for clubs like Spurs, like Leicester, and for West Ham as well to an extent.
Yeah, I mean,
it's a real kind of like good chance this season.
There are teams creeping up. I mean, take take Southampton, for example, absolutely. I mean, you wouldn't say they've had a particularly inspiring season, but they went on such an incredible run, and they're up there now. They're amongst it.
Yeah.
And teams creep up, don't they? They just silently, they can just turn it around.
Well, that's a reflection of kind of what we were saying right at the start about, you know, the spending power that clubs like West Ham have got. And if you look at what's happened like with the new TV deal, and this is going to be magnified even more next season, for want of a better word, smaller clubs are going to have more spending power, whereby they can attract players like Payet and, more importantly, pay him the wages to keep hold of him. You know, the reputed deal for Payet is worth, 125 grand a week or something. Yeah. There's very few clubs in Europe that can afford that, apart from Premier League clubs. So while there's been a lot of talk about this season that it's the big clubs like Manchester United, Chelsea, Manchester City, perhaps Arsenal to an extent, that have declined in standards, I think that ignores all the good work that's going on throughout the division, and I think you're going to see more of that next season as well.
Okay, Adam, thanks for joining us. Pleasure.
You're welcome.
Be sure to follow Adam on Twitter at Adam Powley.
That's it.
And come on, you eyes.
Yeah, good.